Picking up from a very successful first day where we discussed the basis of redirecting to smart agriculture practices to fit the current environment we live in, we unpacked the concept of regenerative agriculture and farming organic, as well as nutrition and food security. This morning, we turn to agriculture economics, business and marketing, the third session of the four-part series. We are coming to you live from the DB Audio Studios in Windhoek. This is the Bank Windhoek Agriculture series, brought to you in collaboration with the GIZ, the Namibian Nature Foundation, and the Namibian Organic Association. We are broadcasting live on the Bank Windhoek Facebook, as well as YouTube social media channels. Welcome to everybody who have tuned in now with us. My name is Maria Emmanuel, your moderator for this session. For this session on agriculture economics, business, and marketing, in studio with me is Emilie Abraham. Emilie Abraham is an agribusiness specialist. She has a master's in agribusiness management. She has more than 9 years of practical experience in the agriculture sector. She has been involved in capacity building of agribusiness, working with farmers. Currently, she's a manager responsible for the Horticulture Market Development within the Namibian Agronomic Board. In addition, Emilie is a poultry farmer in Umsati region, supplying fresh brown table eggs to 112 families on a weekly basis and to 448 families on a monthly basis. I encourage you to engage us through our social media on Facebook and YouTube by posting your question as we go through the session, which Emilie will provide feedback and engage you at the end of her presentation. Emilie, welcome.
Thank you very much, Maria. I just want to say that you can't talk about agriculture economics without talking about investment. And you cannot also talk about investment without talking about business and marketing, because for you to do business, you need money to invest. And you also need the right opportunity so that you make sure that you invest in the right opportunity that will bring income to your business. So today, I would like to call you to join me as we look at the investment opportunity in the agriculture sector from the Namibia context. These are actually the presentation focus. We'll talk about, I'll take you through the overview on agriculture sector, and then we'll also talk about or discuss why we should invest in agribusiness. And we'll also talk about investment opportunity that exists in our agriculture sector, and then how should we utilize this investment opportunity productively, and then we conclude. I would like to start with the questions that I once engaged youth, and then I prompt the question as to what is agriculture. Because you find that most of the people, they only talk about agriculture, but they do not know really what is the term means. Agriculture, the first questions, the first answer that I got is to till the land. And then the other one comes again to say, no, agriculture is food. So whether it's now derived from crops or livestock. And then someone again says that, no, it's watering plants. When you see somebody's watering plants, whether it's vegetables or so, then that is agriculture. And then also the other one saying that agriculture is basically owning the field or farm. For as long as you own the field or a farm, then you are doing agriculture. And then another one will say that it's money or selling farm produce. So from agribusiness point of view, I would want to link the three. Tilling the land to produce food, and you must produce productively so that you'll be able to get money. And that money, you get it from selling of farm produce. So it doesn't mean that if you own the field or farm, you are doing agriculture. So that's why it's very important that wherever you are sitting, if you are resettled, or you just purchase the land and you don't do any cultivation or you don't produce crops or livestock, then you have reduced your farm to a homestead, because that's similar to a homestead because there's nothing that is going on. And then let's look at how philosophers are saying about agriculture. So, you know, I chose to define this term in 2 words, because this is actually a combination of 2 words. Agri, meaning field, land, or farm. And then we talk of culture. If you look at Latin, they call it cultura, which is cultivations. And then also culture can also mean growing or produce. So meaning that when you put it together, you are using now the field or you use your land to cultivate or to grow or to produce, whether it's livestock or crops. And then in agribusiness, if you have to add now business to agri, that will mean that now you are farming for business, and that's what we want today. So I'm going to discuss how we should farm for business. Then we come to overview of agriculture sector. So our sector in Namibia, I would say that it's dualistic. It's comprised of subsistence farmers and also commercial farmers. Subsistence, normally they produce food for their own consumptions and only sell surplus in times of need. For example, if there's someone going to school, that's when they will see that it's necessary for them to sell a cattle or probably Mahangu or so. And then these subsistence farmers, mostly they are based in the northern regions of the country. You talk of Kavango, Zambezi, you talk of Angwena, Oshana, and then Umsati, yes, all those regions. With commercial farmers, normally these farmers are doing farming for business. Whatever they produce on the land, they take it to the market so that they recoup their production costs and then they sustain also the business. Normally they depend in farming for their livelihood, money, income, and for food. So there are common agricultural enterprises in the agriculture sector in Namibia. The most common one is crops, which is with crop actually we divide it into two. That's now horticulture that cater for your fruits and then vegetables. And then we have the agronomy crops, which is mostly we call it staple food because these are now your grain. So we have now the most common one that our farmers grow is Mahangu, which is pure millet. And then we have white maize and then wheat that we use for the product for which normally we use it for bread, to make bread. And then we have livestock. That's now your cattle, your sheep, goats, pigs, and then also poultry fall in this livestock. Then there is also now the two agricultural regulatory bodies that are regulating this industry. We have now your Agronomic Board that is regulating the horticulture and agronomic industry. And then we have now the Meat Board of Namibia that is regulating the livestock industry. Then having said that, so there's no business without challenges, or let me say every sector have challenges. So if you look at agriculture sector, the main common challenges is climate change and COVID-19. So this one is a recent one, and I would say that as farmers, we need to be vigilant because challenges or troubles, they come uninvited. So you need to develop some contingency planning to make sure that you are prepared because anything can happen. And then before I tackle the challenges, I would want to take you through on Namibian Agronomic Board role. So I will not talk much on Meat Board because I work for Agronomic Board, and in my presentation basically I must say that from the beginning that I'll be more framed to crop and horticulture industry, although I'll touch here and there on few things related to livestock because agriculture is a broader term that cater for both livestock and crop, as I have alluded to earlier. So with Namibian Agronomic Board now, the role in agriculture sector is to promote the agronomic and horticulture industry. By meaning this, I mean now that we facilitate the entire value chain, starting from productions. We make sure that we stimulate production and make sure that farmers are producing crops so that we'll be able to enhance food security in the country and also for us to be able to stand on ourselves in terms of reducing or substituting imports. And then processing, we are also facilitating processing of product, and then storage as well as marketing for all controlled products. So basically it means that there are products that are gazetted as control products, and these are the ones that we control or we deal with. Then we look at the overview. Let's look at the forecast. The forecast, in terms of impact of COVID-19, like I've indicated now to say, COVID-19 is one of the challenges that we are faced with as farmers or as farming communities. If you look at the forecast that was done for 3 years or 4 years, you see that the GDP, gross domestic product, is projected to be lower. It's very, very low, and we need to do something to ensure that we restructure the GDP. And then they start with the upscaling production, they start with investing in agriculture so that we'll be able to increase our contribution to gross domestic product. And then we look at exchange rate. If you look at the projection, basically the exchange rate increased, and this is a risky thing to the farming community, because this will mean that the farming enterprise will be now an expensive thing to do, because exchange rate will mean that import cost will be high. And then if import cost is very high, you will see that most of the production inputs that we use in Namibia, we import them from other countries. And also food commodities, some of the food commodities that we cannot produce as a country, because not all the food commodity that we are able to produce, the like of rice and other things. So meaning that when now the exchange rate is very high, it will mean that the import parity price will be higher, and then this will end up with the consumer pocket. So then we come to low profit margins. In business, when your production cost is very high, that will mean that you are likely to realize low profit margin at the end of the day. And that's why this is really a concern. And then increase in prices of food commodity, you see that in shops, food will be very expensive, and yes, it will be now very difficult for the consumers to eat a balanced diet at home, and this compromises eventually the food security in the country. And then we come to increase in post-harvest losses. When COVID-19 struck in, most of the markets shut down. We have your informal market because, for example, the small-scale farmers, mostly they sell to informal markets. And we have also those producers, large-scale producers who supply, for example, institutions, like, for example, the catering company that supply hospitals, supply schools. So when the schools stopped, we had cases like, for example, some producer could struggle to sell pumpkins because mostly pumpkins are consumed in hostels. And then also we have also now the small-scale farmers who struggle to sell their produce because the informal market where they normally sell, these street vendors were nowhere to be found because of now the COVID-19 measures that were put in place. And then loss of job and also loss of business. So what it means in business is that when you fail to recoup your production cost, mostly if you don't have reserves, for example, the small-scale farmer, mostly they do not have reserve. They sell, they use up the money, and that's why they were most hard hit by COVID-19 impact, because when you struggle to sell your produce, that will mean that you will not have the money to go and purchase input for you to go and replant, and that's why some of them, they were chased out of the business. And then that will mean now loss of jobs for people who used to work for those farmers. Then we move on to impact of climate change. If you look at this graph, it shows that there is fluctuations in terms of rain season. Apologies, there are some figures that are missing there, but basically the red bars stand for low rainfall, and then those blue bars actually stand for the years with good rainfall. So initially it's supposed to start from 90-something there and then goes to 2019. But then you see that the red bar is fluctuating, which means that now climate change have really changed the game of farming. So meaning that it's now becoming very difficult to plan because you do not know what is happening. This year, obviously, we had good rain, but then next year, it might be that it will be a bad year. And that's why I still re-emphasize that climate-smart agriculture is the theme of this whole session, is that we need to adapt resilient strategies for us to safeguard our business enterprises. Then we look at the temperature. You know, climate change also instigates high temperature. And we need to understand that there's a level of temperature that crop can tolerate. Although we have those crops that can worship too much heat and those that worship cold, there are certain levels that they can tolerate. So for example, anything that is beyond 30, normally most crops they don't tolerate. And then they can have heat stress. This will impact on their growth, and also the crop development can be affected. And then also when the temperature is too low again, then you see that the frost issue comes in. If you look at, for example, during this winter, we had a challenge with cucumber, English cucumber. So it was very low, and it really struggled to pick up because initially English cucumber get deterred by low temperature, and it's a summer crop. Now we have farmers who are planting under controlled environment, and since the condition is just very cold, so it could not really pick up very well. So these are the impact of climate change when it's come now to through temperature, and we really need to make sure that at least if you are engaging in especially vegetables, we need to see to it that at least we must invest in shading. Yes. Then the other things now is that the heat stress, I already talked about it. Climate change also instigates the diseases and pest outbreak. You know, we have the like of outbreak of tuta absoluta, which was experienced there in Olushanja site. We have the armyworms that normally comes and it's always devastate field, crop field, pew millets, and also maize field. And then we have locust. This one is just recent one. As we speak, we are sitting with locust problem in Zambezi region. And this is just the problem that we were looking at through internet in other countries that are experiencing this. But so these are all result of climate change, because when the climate is hot, normally the pests, they find it more favorable for them to bleed. And then the multiplication or proliferation of this pest, it's actually very faster, even for diseases. You find that fungal disease find it more conducive for them to multiply during summer, when it's too hot. And that's why it's very, very difficult now to farmers. And then we have high production cost. You know, you see, when the temperature is very high, it becomes very expensive when it comes to irrigation, because most of the water, they lose it through evaporations or evapotranspirations. So meaning that now you will spend more money in water than usual. And also the other thing, you see that the aquifer or the water table also is declining, especially during drought, because it's not being recharged as it's supposed to be. So meaning this now will put a burden to farmers, because the boreholes will also start drying up. Those who depend on dams also, it will also start, the dam level also start to diminish, and this is also now causing a high production cost to the farmers. And then we come to low profit margins. So you see that, like I said at the beginning, that in business, when your production cost is very high, obviously this has an impact on your profit margin. And that's why we need to make sure that at least we prioritize all the technologies that will safeguard our business. Then we come to the questions. Why investing in agribusiness? Why should we bother? The very first point is that agriculture is a backbone, it's a strategic sector. To talk the truth, most of the sector cannot cope without agriculture, because let me give an example of health. For patients, or if you are sick in the hospital, for you to take medications, you are told to eat first before you take medications. And the other thing also is that for the doctor to operate you or to treat you diligently, even nurses, they need to eat. They must take breakfast first before they do that job very well. And that's why it's very important that we prioritize agriculture if really we want to develop our country. And then we also need to recover from COVID-19 impact. I have shown how the GDP have declined, even in terms of economy of the country. Really, it's according to NSI, it's also indicating that there's a sharp decline with the minus 11%, which is really an alarming thing, and we need to do something. And then also, we need to increase local production. So for us to increase in local production is only when we invest in agriculture, and then we are able to, or farmers are able to expand and also upscale their production at farm level. And then eventually we are looking forward to substitute imports so that we depend on ourselves, because if you look at COVID-19, have really taught us a lesson. And it said that, I think African argued that there is actually a proverb that says, once hurt, twice shy. So, which means that if this COVID, this is a lesson learned that we need to learn to start producing our own food. What if something comes up again and then the borders get closed? Where are we going to depend? And that's why you see that when COVID-19 kicks in. People start speculating and spreading rumors that, no, the borders will be closed and there's no food that is coming in. And you see people, they started now buying, were panicking, and then they start buying, and then we could experience shelves were empty. It's because they had no faith that our producer can produce sufficiently. So it's now up to the farming community that we need to regain that trust that we can also make it, we can produce enough for the country. And then we come to economic growth. Like I said, this is a backbone. We need to grow our economy, and we can only grow our economy if we are injecting in agribusiness. And also, we need also to diversify, because it's said that you must not put your financial eggs in one basket. So it's always good that you diversify with the options that are viable. And then create job. For you to create job opportunity, I think it would be a right thing to do to invest in agriculture, because as we look at the statistics shows that 70% of the job or 70% of the population, you see, whether it's same-skilled or low-skilled, are employed in the sector. So if you are not injecting money in the sector, or you are not investing in agribusiness, that will mean that you are standing a chance to lose the job for the 70% of the job, as is indicated by the statistic. And also the other thing is fill the gaps. You know, if you look at most of the value chains, most of them, they are still underdeveloped in our country. And we need to fill this gap. And we can only fill this gap if we invest in agribusiness. Let's have just a quick look on the chain, because I just want to show you what is missing on the chain. On the chain, basically, or value chain, although it may be similar, they share similarity, whether it's livestock or crop. We have producers. These are now the primary producers. And talking from the background of agronomy, we have 3,000 white maize producers in the country. And then we have 20 wheat producers. Then we have 50,000 pure millet producers. Then 500 horticulture. So these people, they are responsible to feed 2 million consumers. That is basically the Namibian populations. Can you imagine? You see the number of producers, and you look at the consumers, the number of consumers that we need to feed. So that is too heavy for them. So that's why we really need to come in. If you have the land that is idle somewhere and you are not tilling it, I think time is now that you start tilling the land and put it into production. Then we have grain processors. This is still an opportunity, because we have only 20 grain processors. And I must tell you that value addition is needed in the country. The more we add value, the more we create job, the more we are creating markets for these producers, and the more they are able to expand, because all what they need, producer, they only need to be guaranteed with the market. That's what they need. And then we have distributors. We have actually a problem as we speak with the transportation of goods. Especially the small-scale farmers are struggling to transport their goods to the market. But we need people to stand strong and say, no, I will invest in a vehicle, or I invest in a truck that I'll be able to assist farmers at a cost, obviously. And then we have also traders. Traders, so far we have only registered traders who are, the registered traders are standing at 100. So they are 100, we still need more people to enter into the industry. And then storage facility, this is now the issue. You see that especially now we are standing, or normally we experience problem with onions. Onions, we produce it, we are doing very well, I must acknowledge. But then the problem is that we need investors to invest in storage facility, so that during the time of market glut or surplus, then they'll be able to store the onions. Then we will not have a problem of saying this season onion is short, we need to import. This season onions, we have surplus, and then the onions are going to waste. So we really need, that is a link that we have, that is missing as we speak, storage facilities. And then the input suppliers, I think they are good so far. All what we need is just that they need to also invest in quality planting materials, Also, they need also to be updated. They must bring the technologies that are required now as we speak, so that when they are available producer, they can easily access this material from their shops, because not all of the producers that are able to import straight from importing countries. But if they can make these inputs available to producer, then we are good to go in terms of increasing production. The investment opportunities. So I will articulate investment opportunities that we'll find in agronomy, and then we'll also look at horticulture, and then I'll also just touch a little bit on other agricultural enterprises that I feel that these opportunities are not exploited, and they really need young women and money to stand up and take advantage of this. Let's start with the agronomy, opportunities in agronomy. Normally agronomy that we have, or that I will discuss at this juncture, is that I will talk about pea millets, which is a staple food, and we know that. If you go to the northern region, you see that you cannot do without pap. A day will not go by without having pap. Then we have white maize, and then wheat, which is used in most of the product that we buy from the shop, including bread. Looking at Mahangu, it will surprise you that we still have to import Mahangu when we have indigenous knowledge. We have been cultivating Mahangu for decades. And this is a crop that we are able to maximize in terms of production and treat it as a commercial crop, because Mahangu is a commercial crop. The market is not an excuse, because the market is there. And NAB made it very easier for farmers to register themselves. As long as you are registered, you can be linked to millers, and you can sell your pure millets. So what is happening is that, especially in the northern region, or subsistence farmers, they store Mahangu, and then it will get spoiled in their small silos. So that's why it's very important that our farmers need to realize that there's an opportunity, and they need to expand where possible. If you look at the local production for Mahangu, on average it stands at 1,066 tons. And then the tons that we import, it's 3,492. So in total, we say that we consume roughly 4,558. So meaning that if we have now to take advantage of this opportunity for us to be able to produce the remaining 3,313 and substitute imports, we need at least to put 8,221 hectares into production. And this is something easy to do, because we are already having the knowledge. The land is there. Mahangu is normally cultivated under rain-fed. And this is just it's a matter of saying, let me expand my field. Let me use quality seed, because even this seed, they are available with government institutions, especially if you go to agriculture extension offices, they will help you with the quality seed. Yes, and then we can substitute imports. So that is the value, local production value, 1.5 million, which means that the import value has the share of 18.1 million. While our local, this is the money that we're supposed to put in our pockets, but it's actually going outside. And then the local consumption value stands at 20.3 million. So you cannot imagine that even a crop that is easy for us to grow, we can't grow it. So we need commercial farmers to come in and fill that gap. And then the Mahangu, mostly we import it from India. That's where we get our Mahangu to cater for shortage. Then we move to wheat. Wheat, I must say that it's a bit challenging, because we need the cultivar that is really coping with the environment. And plus that wheat is a seasonal crop, because normally it loves cold weather. So if you look at, we are really not doing very well, because if you look at the local production, it stands at 9 tons, 9,977 tons. And then the imports stand at 98 tons. So you see that we are really importing a larger volume of wheat compared to what we are producing locally. And the local consumptions or the domestic requirements stand at 108,000 tons. So if you take it now to say, how many hectares do we need to put into production for us to be able to substitute imports? Then we need to cultivate roughly around 19,061 hectares. So this is something that we need to sleep over it. Let's think, those who can, let's try to. You can even start with the adding already 2 hectares or 1 hectare, and then you expand as time goes. Yes, normally wheat is produced under irrigation. It's not a dry land crop, and that's why I would recommend that it must be considered mostly by people who are able to irrigate. So the regions that are producing this crop, normally we have Kavango, which is having the share of 36%, then Cast area, then we have Central, and then the South with 59%. In monetary term, we will say that local production value stand at 23 million, and then the import value is 620 million per annum, which is quite very disappointing because you see that a lot of millions are going outside the country. And the local consumption value stand at 643 million. This suggests really that farming community need to see to it, or either you are not a farmer and you want to do business, let's take advantage of this opportunity. So the importing countries, we talk of India, we talk of Poland, Russia, and then South Africa. This is where normally we get our wheat from. And mind you now, these things of COVID-19 and with the exchange rate increasing, that will mean that if wheat price increases, then it will mean you will find, it's not so far that you find a bread at $30 because the cost also it is increased. Then we come to white maize. With white maize, our local production stand at 53,616. That's the local production in tonnage. And then the imports stand at 100,692 tons. So the total domestic requirements stand at 154 tons, 308. So which means that we consume a lot of white maize, and the imports still leading. So in terms of monetary value, you see that still 483 million is going for imports. And we are only able to take advantage of 134 millions, which is quite very disappointing. And we need to do something as a country. So the importing country mainly is our neighboring country, South Africa. That's where we are getting our our supplementary stock. Like I said at the beginning that NAB is facilitating the market. If you look at that, why I'm saying there's an opportunity with this crop is that NAB makes sure that whenever we have enough production volume in the local market, it closes the border so that we protect the producer from the cheap imports. So let's take, for example, for grain products, wheat, maize, particularly from May, that red bar normally stands for closing, to say the borders are closed. From May there to October, the border normally are closed, depending on the production volume. So all what you need to do as farmers, you need to convince us with the volume. As long as there's volume, the border can close all year round. But if there's no volume, then we are left with no option but to open the border so that we can allow traders to complement the stock. And then for pure millet, normally if you look at traditionally, people they start harvesting from July there, June, July. So the border normally close from July to November, depending now on the local production volume as well. So, but if we could have people who are expanding and really taking pure millet as a business, then you'll see that the red bar will be red throughout. Then we have wheat. Normally wheat season starts from October to January there, and then you see that the borders are closed. So that's what NAB is trying to do to protect the market. So the market is guaranteed. All what you need to do is just to start thinking how you should make your land productive and start contributing to food security. Then we are done for now with the agronomy. We'll move to horticulture industry. For horticulture industry is quite complex because there is, like I said from the beginning, that we have crops that are gazetted as control products, and those are the one that we deal with. And there are those crops that are under monitoring. So what do we mean? Those that are controlled is that whenever we have sufficient production in the country, we immediately close the border so that the traders of fresh produce, they start sourcing from local market. With monitored crops, these are crops that we see that they have potential to be the volume to increase. So we monitor to see whether we'll be satisfied with the volume, and then we'll start adding them to controlled crop group. So all what we need, if you look at monitored crop, that is actually an opportunity already on its own, because all what we need to be convinced with the volume. The moment the volume starts picking up, then it will mean that obviously they will be gazetted, and then whenever we have sufficient productions, then we close the border. So what we are fighting for, we want to make sure that at least we are producing what we eat and eat what we produce. So let's look at the statistic. The local productions in terms of horticulture, we are only able to produce 37% of what we consume. And then the import is 63%, which means that we need to pull up our socks. We need to at least start already chasing half. At least if it could be half, it's much better. But then if we talk of substituting imports, we really need to put strategies in place to make sure that we heavily invest in this sector. And then we look at, in terms of value, again, huge money is going for imports. You look at 417 million is going for imports. And this is the money that we could use to develop our sector. Since horticulture basically is comprised of fruits and vegetables, I also just take time to analyze them separately. If you look at vegetable alone, the local production for veggies is still very low again. And import veggies, it's actually higher than the local production. But at least you see that 30 million, it's quite, 30 tons, it's quite very closer to 34. We just need to press another button and then we'll get there. And then the local consumption for veggies is stand at 65 tonnage. So then we come to fruits. This is where we need to do something. The local production for fruits, it only stands at 794. So meaning that we are producing very little, normally 4% of what we consume. So we really need to start planting trees, fruit trees. I know that it takes a longer, or the gestation period for fruit production is quite longer, but we really need to start planting trees for us to stand on our own. This is just now in terms of value, it's still showing the same. And then coming now to see the contribution. What is the contribution for each crop in terms of local percentage and imports? We will see that potato is leading. We need attention there. 69% of potato that we consume in the country, we get it from the neighbor country, which is South Africa. And then we look at also, what else there? We look at, for example, sweet potato that could be easily be grown. We are still eating 52% from outside. And then the cauliflower, 63 is coming from outside. 72 of gem squash is coming from outside. So this table will really indicate to you which crop that we are heavily importing and where we need to come in as a business or as an agribusiness man or woman. And I always advise the farmers to say, visit our office, call us. We have a market development officer in Tsumeb that can assist you, just to give you an indication which crop is in shortage, which one in surplus, to avoid entering into the market with the crop with surplus. And also we have one in Windhoek and one in Zambezi region. So they are willing to help. And please, let's seek for the information before we start, so that we start right. Monetary value is the same. And then I must also indicate that there's an opportunity for us to export, because there are farmers who are exporting to South Africa, to Angola, And then I have seen one recently also exporting to DRC. So, and also it's our obligation as a board that we are trying also to open more export market. So now what we need is just for you to produce more, and then we can try to see how we can secure a market for you. Then we come to opportunity in terms of value addition and agro-processing. This is quite something that is missing. I think 4 months ago we released a circular just to indicate to all the producers that and traders that we are now placing levies on processed product because we are trying to stimulate agro-processing in the country. All what we need is that if we are consuming, look at what we are consuming from outside. Fruit and veggie juice, mixed, you know, those potato chips that you see in the fridge, we are all exporting them. But this is an opportunity that we can also start the same thing and then start processing our own thing and consume our own processed product. Same applies, that is the value that we are spending in the processed product. And that's what we are doing from the space of vegetables. If you look at, that is the current one for October. If you look at beetroot, it's closed. There we are doing very well, which means that we have sufficient volume. But if you look at butternuts, it's open. The border is open because we do not have sufficient. And just to tell you the truth is that currently in South Africa, butternut price per kg is double. It's double basically, and it's very difficult for traders now to buy butternut from South Africa because when they add their markup price, then it will be very expensive for producers to buy. Then you find, for consumers to buy. Then you find that in the market you hardly find butternut. So why can't we produce our own butternut? So this is an opportunity that we can take advantage of. And then we have green pepper. For as long as I know, we never close the border for green pepper. So meaning that we have a huge opportunity for one to come in to produce a green pepper or on a larger scale. And then we have onions, we are good to go. Pumpkins, which is very easy to grow as well, we are open. Potato, ever open because we only produce probably half of what we consume. And then we have watermelon and sweet melon. These ones are seasonal crop, and most of the production volume only come in October 25th. So which means these ones are not so, they are not problematic as we speak. Other unexploited opportunities, we have poultry and poultry feeds. As we speak, most of the poultry feeds ingredients, they are coming from outside. And these are ingredients that we can grow on our own. We talk of sunflower seed, we talk of yellow maize, we talk of soybeans. Why can't we negotiate with the millers to say, I want to produce for you this feed, and then you enter into supply agreement? So this is one of the opportunities that you can take advantage, because chicken feed is one of the expensive products that make chicken product also expensive. But if you can produce our own chicken feed ingredients, then it will be easier for us also. It will be cheaper for us to buy chicken feed on a cheaper price. And then also poultry, it's really, the production is very low. We need farmers to come in to take advantage of this industry, although it's just an infant industry. Piggery and piggery feed, same applies. We need more people to come in with piggery. I know there's always challenges, but we must find a way to navigate these challenges, because there's no business without challenges. Then we come to fish production, tilapia, aquaculture. We know most people, they are no longer eating red meat because of health conditions, but if you can have some aquaculture in our communities, I think it will be easier for us, especially with tilapia, which is well liked in the communities or in Namibia. And then we have cowpeas production. Cowpeas, we grew up eating cowpeas. It's high protein. It has a potential to reduce the number of malnutritions in the country, and I think this is something that you can also take advantage of. And sorghum production, if you look at, for example, in the shop now, you find that Namibian now is making oshikundu, where you find a small bag of sorghum. Why can't we take advantage of this sorghum production at the commercial level, and then Namibian can start buying from us as local producers? So these are the opportunities that we are sitting on, and we really need to think and take advantage of this. Groundnuts productions. There was once a man who visited my office looking for groundnut producers because they want to come up with a processing plant for peanuts. because you know peanuts mostly it's liked in the hospital. It's highly demanded, but to my surprise, there was actually limited farmers who are producing groundnuts. So we need to take advantage of these high value crops and then invest in it. And then we have crop and livestock insurance. This is another line, but as we speak, you see that most of the crop farmers, whether it's livestock, maybe poultry, you want to insure your enterprise, but really there's no way where you can go. So we need really some people to come in and identify this opportunity and make it easier for farmers to insure their crop enterprise or farm enterprise in general. Utilizing how we should utilize capacity building is key. We need to understand, you must look for a mentor, somebody who is well experienced in your area or a farmer who have been farming for so long. You might just get friends, have coffee, discuss, find out challenges and also how did he manage to succeed or to get where he is. And then also, we must also get in touch with institutions that offer training. Some of them, they offer free training, some you pay little, but it doesn't matter, it's worth it. Because it's better that you start an enterprise with the right knowledge rather than investing your money when you don't know what you are doing. And then proper business plan and production plan, we really need proper business plan. You find, talking from experience, is that you find that most people, they actually base their decision based on unrealistic business plan and theoretical business plan. It's okay, you can go and look for someone to prepare for your business plan, but it must be practical. You cannot have a business plan which is supposed to be your map or guiding tool, but you do not understand it. Even if the financier asks you to say, what do you want to achieve here? What is your cash flow per annum? You don't understand. So please make sure that your business plan is realistic and as practical as possible. And then coming to production plan, please let's plan our production in a succession way to say, for you to secure a supply agreement with farmer markets, normally they would want to say to supply per week. So you must plant your crop such that you'll be able to supply per week, and you must honor that agreement. Yes. Then we come to proper market research. Please research before you start. I always indicate to people to say, to farmers to say, before you start with sweet potato, find out which sweet potato is liked, because there are 3 sweet potatoes. And the most one that is liked, you can even go around the shop, you see that there's only red potato, sweet potato that is in the shop. Why starting with white sweet potato when you want to sell to the farmer market? So understand which type of crop is needed to which market. So that is what is very, very important. And form groups. Sometimes it's not good that you work in isolations. It doesn't work. We need to fight this poverty or this issue collectively. Form groups, you can put resources together, you buy input, you bargain inputs. It's much easier for you. You can even get input on a cheaper cost because you are in a group, you are buying in bulk. You can even get the market because not all the small-scale farmers that are able to meet the volume that is wanted. But if you are in group, then you'll be able to meet the demand that is required by such trader. And then comply to existing rule. It's very, very important that you must be legitimate. You must comply to the existing rules and regulations to avoid risk and interruption, business interruptions. And the other thing is supply agreement. So when you enter and try to enter into supply agreement, we are also facilitating this as a board, but even if yourself you can do that, and make sure that quality and quantity is key, and make sure that you are also complying to specifications. If the trader or the buyer say that I want, for example, champagne tomatoes or tomato with champagne color, adhere to that. Don't say, no, I have only this ripen. If you don't want to buy, no, you don't want. So please, let's make sure that we adhere to supply agreement and you are able to honor it. Then joint venture. Sometimes also we need to do this business jointly. Form partnership. You may have the land, but you don't have finance. So if somebody has finance and don't have the land, joint or form partnership with someone with a land and then invest. So that's the only way we'll be able to contribute to our economic growth. And just to conclude, just to say that for us to achieve all what I've said, we need collective effort from everybody. From producers, from financing institutions, we need money. Because that's where money is what we use to buy the inputs and to inject into business. So we need training institutions to come in and train these farmers to open their mind so that farmers know what they are doing. We need the regulatory bodies to ensure that farmers are protected. So this is what we call, in other words, organized agriculture. With organized agriculture, we are able to pick up this industry and help it to recover from the impact of COVID-19 that we are sitting with. And just to say that Windhoek really deserve a big pat on the back, because what they have done to create this platform for us to educate the people, I think that's very, I mean, that's what we are looking for as a nation. And low youth participation also, we need to encourage the youth, because you'll be surprised that the average age for Africa, and Namibia inclusive, is 60 years, which means that we are really on a weak ground, because we need youth to be involved in agriculture. And yes, affordable financing facility. Please, we are looking forward for the financial or financing institutions to come up with the tailor-made financing facilities that are suitable, even to include small-scale farmers. Yes. And then empower and support smallholder farmers with a project that are sustainable. I want also to acknowledge and admit that the government is doing very well on that space, but all what we need to do is that for whatever project that we suggest or come, I mean, we should come up with a winning strategy to say, when do we win who? So that we allow others to come in, because it will not help us that we develop maybe a scheme, and then when the project stop, then people, they are going back to where they come from. So we need to make sure that whenever the project ends, these people are still stronger and they're able to stand on their feet on their own. And then last but not least, input suppliers, they really need to work harder. Like I said, we need efforts from all stakeholders. We need quality planting materials to be available. We need the short maturing cultivars that we are able to grow in this amidst of climate change for us to realize good yield and get also good return on investment. And yes, otherwise, with this few words, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to take some questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emilie. It was such an insightful and inspirational presentation that you gave us. Of course, now we come to the end of our presentation, and we want to engage our viewers who have been with you throughout your presentation. We have some questions for you, of course. Let's see what they have said here. I think first they want to find out more the assistance from the Agronomic Board in terms of assisting capacity building to small-scale farmers particularly. Mm-hmm. If you can highlight perhaps what the Agronomic Board is doing in that. And then of course also food safety. When it comes to food safety, how does the NAB ensure the food is safe, whether it's imported, produced in the domestic market? Mm-hmm. And then also maybe if you are able to touch on subsidization of agriculture input cost for seeds, fertilizer, implements, fodder, medicine. So your basic input when it comes to subsidy, what is happening there? You know, is NAB involved there, the ministry and the industry itself? And then another question is, knowing that the youth are not doing business in agriculture, how can you make agriculture or agribusiness attractive to young people? You have mentioned in your last slide that, of course, the average age in agriculture is 60 years, right? But what is interesting is the average age of Namibia is 22. So that Namibian youth think agriculture is for all people, of course, because they grow up in subsistence farming, where the elderly dominate in this sector. How can we change this, knowing that we have also made professional jobs attractive and all these things? So maybe we can just tackle that in terms of capacity building, food safety, and then the youth involvement, and then subsidies within the input production.
Okay, thank you very much. I think let me start with capacity building. Like I said, the mandate for the board is to develop the horticulture and agronomy industry. And we cannot talk about development without talking about building the capacity of people. So we have that provision, and all what we need is that the producers or the farmers, whether it's youth, they organize themselves, they write a letter to us, then they indicate specifically which type of crop, which type of enterprise they would want to venture into, and then we can take it from there. So what we do is that we either do training our own, or we appoint an expert, whether from outside, from inside, to train them, and then they can take it from there. So that provision is there. And coming to food safety, NAB has a department that is responsible for food safety and standard compliance. So all what they do is that they make sure that whatever is produced is safe to eat or is safe to consume. So we have qualified compliance inspectors who visit facilities. If, for example, you say that you want to start trading with fresh produce or you want to start processing, they come, they have a checklist to see whether you meet all the food safety standards. And then once they are convinced that you are, then they will allow you to trade. But if they are not convinced, obviously your application will be declined. So the other thing also coming to imports, we have inland inspectors, so they also do inland. They inspect your truck to make sure that whatever that is not allowed, whether it's not now, it has to do with the health issue, but it's probably closed. We are trying to protect our producers. We immediately confiscate it and then we donate it to the COVID-19 centers or probably orphanage home and any other organization that is deemed fit. The last one was on youth involvement.
Yes, youth involvement, maybe subsidization.
Or
subsidy first,
yes.
yeah.
Subsidy, I've seen, I think Minister of Agriculture is a custodian on that one. I've seen they are taking a lead. I've seen so many schemes that they are really passing on. There is this subsidy on horticulture. So meaning that if you are really you want to involve in agriculture or what you do, I mean, in horticulture production, or what you need to do is just to approach your nearest extension office and then understand the procedures and also how you should qualify, because that one is there. So they will subsidize your input seed and whatever that you need for you to start the production. And also, I also saw now something that is coming up circulating on poultry. So I think they are really doing great. They are trying to subsidize on feed, vaccine, and so forth. So I think they are already doing good on that space. For us, really, we are just on the marketing for now. We are just making sure that whatever you produce with that subsidy or whether you produce it with your own funds, we make sure that you are secured in terms of the market.
Okay. Now, how do we get the youth in?
Yes, the youth, one thing that I want to, from experience, is that when I used to train youth is that you need to come up with an enterprise that is appetizing. Do you understand? Youth, normally, they are not patient. They want something that will bring quick cash. You can't introduce enterprise that will take forever to bring in cash. And that's why you see that most of youth, whenever they have money, all what they think is to start with a bar. And they forgot that the beer that they sell, it's contained with barley, and barley is agriculture. So what I'm saying is that the youth, we need to come in to say, to sensitize them to take even enterprise like poultry, like vegetable, because vegetable, the gestation period for most vegetable is just 3 months. These are things that within 3 months they are able to recoup their production costs and they are able to get profit. And also the other thing is that youth, they need to be trained on financial management. That's one part, because with business, it's not just you get this money and then you already start investing in cars. But it has to do, you need to treat it as a business, you need to build the reserve, and then the cars and other things will eventually come when you see that really you are standing on a strong ground.
Yeah. And I think also bringing out the youth that are already involved, because there are a lot of youth involved.
Yeah.
I think we must bring those in front so they inspire the rest
Exactly.
to say, you know, you can follow that. And the last one is, good morning, this is Sarah Amunime, thank you very much. I would like to thank Bank Windhoek for coming up with this initiative, very informative. I would like to know where can one get all the statistics that were shown in this part of the presentation? So everything that you showed, all the millions and that, how can they get it? Basically, that's what
no, the statistics, they are available with us. Normally, NAB always upload on the website, but some of them, in case if some of them they are not there, they are very welcome to call my office. I don't know whether I should give my email address also, because you can just, or what you need, you just need to drop me an email requesting for the statistic that you want, and then I can immediately send it to you.
Awesome. One last one, Emilie. You touched on the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's very interesting that all the statistics that we've been doing before that are now erased by that. What are maybe briefly opportunities that we can learn from the pandemic moving forward as an agriculture sector?
Yes, thank you very much. I think that was a very good question, because like I said, I've used an idiom that most Africans like to use to say, once hurt, twice shy. To say, for example, if you experience a problem, you do not need to that to repeat itself again for you to act. So I think this was already a good lesson for us to learn as a country, for us to make sure that we start producing our own food. That's the number one. Because if you look at COVID-19 pandemic, when COVID-19 kicks in, there was problems, bottlenecks here and there in terms of the value chain, and food value chain was impacted. And you see that the flow of food was not so good, and which demand or suggest that we need, if we could have our own food that we are able to produce, then we will not have this problem of people to go to shops, pushing each other, panic to buy things and then empty the shelves. We will also not have a problem where our food security, or to say our diets are compromised, because some people had poor diets because you cannot get all the ingredients that you need to eat in the house. So as a country, or what we need to do, let's start producing our own food. Let's use the land that we have to contribute to food security. And once we substitute imports, then we are good to go.
Yeah. What about standards, by the way? You mentioned the small scale. You provide market, but one of the key thing is the standards. If the farmers is able to actually produce, and that product is then has standard enough to get into the shelf space, because you find that the retailers will also put green peppers there, but you as a consumer, you come and you pick what is appealing to you. So they also obviously work with what is appealing to the consumer and they put it in the shop. So is there any mechanism, or is it that you just address it through your capacity building to actually increase the standard of the small scale farmers to access the market easily?
Yes, what happens is that what we do is, because quality for us is the priority, because even data that I was showing you here, we make sure that whatever we report is the marketable yield. We don't report on things that are not marketable. So what we mean is that we have market development officers that are on the ground that normally quarterly they visit the farms, and then they also give ad hoc advice. And then we also link sometimes the producers to traders, to say trader can come forth to train them, maybe how do they want those tomatoes to be grown, how do they want them to be packed, how do they want them to be packaged. And this is what I discuss about specifications. So we are really trying our best there. And then we have also training in pipelines to train the small scale farmers on how to package, on how to ensure that they produce a crop of good standard and also of quality. So that is our priority.
Okay.
Yes.
No, thank you very much, Emilie. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the third session of the Bank Windhoek Agriculture Series. I want to thank you very much for such an insightful statistic. It's practical, and I hope it had really inspired a lot of people to get into agriculture and to tap into all those opportunities that you have highlighted there. And of course, thanking our audience for being with us and engaging us up to this. As mentioned to you earlier, this is the third session of the four-part series, and we will have our final session this afternoon. We will be looking at the role of the bank in financing climate change initiatives, and that will be at 3 p.m. We'll have an expert coming in to round off and to actually speak finance and to actually see how we can fund those business plan. What are the banks looking at? Where are they? As you have already mentioned that they must get involved, and you have already also said, Bank Windhoek, well done for coming on board just to provide this information to the people to stimulate their mind. This series is brought to you by Bank Windhoek in partnership with the GIZ, the Namibia Nature Foundation, and the Namibia Organic Association. From me, Maria Emmanuel, have a productive morning, and I'll see you at 3 p.m. for our final session. Thank you very much. And thank you, Emilie.
Thank you, Maria.